Hi, I am Dr. Sulakshana, Assistant Professor in Botany, Ideal College of Arts and Sciences, Kakinada. Today, I am going to explain a very interesting topic that is nothing but pollination. Let's see the topic. Before going to the topic, first we have to see what are the contents I am going to cover here. First, definition of pollination. What are the types of pollination? What are the contrivances of self-pollination? Advantages of self-pollination? Contrivances of cross-pollination? And advantages of cross-pollination. First, what is pollination? Pollination is nothing but the transfer of pollen grains from anther to the stigma of a flower. Here what happens? The pollen grains which are produced from the anther are transferred to the stigma. Anther is the male reproductive structure and stigma is the female reproductive structure. The transfer of pollen grains from anther to the stigma is called pollination. The pollination is of two types. The first one is self-pollination and the second one is cross-pollination. Let's see what is self-pollination. We all know what is pollination, the transfer of pollen grains from anther to the stigma of a flower. If this transfer occurs within the same flower, then it is called as self-pollination, which means the transfer of pollen grains from anther to the stigma of the same flower is called as self-pollination. It occurs only in bisexual flowers because the flower must contain both the sex organs, both male and female. Then only the self-pollination occurs. It is seen in both cleistogamous flowers as well as chasmogamous flowers. What of cleistogamous flowers? The flowers which do not open are called as cleistogamous flowers. As they are closed flowers, there is no chance of foreign pollen grain to reach those flowers. So, here compulsory what happens? The self-pollination will occur in cleistogamous flowers. Chasmogamous flowers means the flowers which open are called chasmogamous flowers. As we see, rose, lily, hibiscus, these all open. The flowers which open are called chasmogamous flowers. It is interesting that both cleistogamous flowers and chasmogamous flowers are present in Commelina bengalensis. It is an example for this. Best example for self-pollination. Next, see what is cross-pollination. Cross-pollination is nothing but the transfer of pollen grains from anther of one flower to the stigma of another flower of same species. Those flowers must belong to the same species. Then it is called cross-pollination. It occurs in both unisexual flowers as well as bisexual flowers. It is again of two types, zettanogamy and xenogamy. What is zettanogamy? Zettanogamy means if the pollen grains transfer from anther to the stigma of the flowers present in the same plant. Both the flowers may be different, but both the flowers are present on the same plant, then it is called as zettanogamy. If the pollen grains transfer from anther of one flower belonging to a plant to the stigma of another flower of another plant, separate plant. Here flowers are different and plants are different, but both belong to the same species. Then it is called xenogamy. Xenogamy is considered to be the true cross-pollination. Okay? These are the two types of pollination, self-pollination and cross-pollination. Let's see what are the contrivances of self-pollination. What are the special adaptations a plant produces to undergo self-pollination? The first one is homogamy. Homo means same. Gamy means gametes. Here what happens? Both male gametes and female gametes mature at the same time. Then it is called as homogamy. Those flowers are called as homogamous flowers. Both male gametes and female gametes mature at the same time. Next adaptation is cleistogamy. Cleistogamy means closed flowers. They do not open throughout their lifetime. The flowers are closed. So only self-pollination occurs in cleistogamous flowers. This is called as cleistogamy. These are the two contrivances a plant adopts for self-pollination. What are the advantages of self-pollination? Indefinite preservation of parental characters. How it helps? Self-pollination helps to preserve the parental characters. And here there is no wastage of any pollen grains. And the flowers need not to be showy, and there is no need for them to produce any nectar or scent to attract the pollinators. Why the plants are showy? Why the flowers are showy with different colors, with a beautiful smell? Why? These are the adaptations to attract the pollinators for cross-pollination. But in self-pollinated flowers, there is no necessity of them. So, those self-pollinated flowers, they don't waste their energy in the production of beautiful colors or scent to attract the pollinators. This is an advantage of self-pollination. Let's see what are the contrivances for cross-pollination. The main important contrivance for cross-pollination is unisexuality or declining. The production of unisexual flowers is called declining. What are unisexual flowers? They contain only one sex organ, either male or female. The flowers may be either male flowers or female flowers. The plant produces only one type of flowers, then it is called as unisexual flowers. This condition is called unisexuality or declining. This is an adaptation for cross-pollination. If male flowers and female flowers are present on the same plant, then it is called as monoecious condition. If they are present on different plants, that is called as dioecious condition. That means male plants are different and female plants are different. This condition is called dioecious condition. This is an important contrivance for cross-pollination. Next one is dichogamy. Dichogamy, which means the gametes mature at different time. Either male gamete mature earlier than female or female gamete mature earlier than male. There are two chances. First one is protandry. Protandry, andry means andrecium. That means andrecium matures earlier than the gynoecium. This condition is called as protandrous condition. Example is Helianthus gossypium. If gynoecium matures earlier than the andrecium, that condition is called as protogyny. Here what happens? Gynoecium matures earlier than the andrecium. Example, Solanum and Ficus. Next adaptation for cross-pollination is hercogamy. Let's see the beautiful flower over here. That is nothing but Gloriosa superba. Here we'll observe a different character. That stamens are facing towards one side and stigma is another side. Both are in opposite direction. male sex organs on one direction and female sex organs on one direction. Why? If they are close, there is a chance of self-pollination. That's why to prevent the self-pollination, the plant adapts this feature. So the male gametes and female gametes are in opposite direction. This is called hercogamy. They might be at different heights or in different directions, but they are not close. Male and female gametes are not close to each other. They are in different heights or in different directions to prevent the self-pollination. This contrivance is called as hercogamy. Next, heterostyly. Here we see different heights of styles. One are long style flowers and one are short style flowers. This is also an adaptation for cross-pollination. These different heights prevents the self-pollination to occur. Here the example is Primula vulgaris. Next, self-sterility. In some bisexual flowers after pollination, the sex organs become sterile to prevent self-pollination. If the foreign pollen grains falls on them, they close. Okay? This feature is called as self-sterility. It is seen in Abutilon and Passiflora. Next is pollen prepotency. What is pollen prepotency? Foreign pollen grains germinate earlier than the self-pollen grains. If both foreign pollen grain and the pollen grain of the same plant fall on the stigma of the flower, which will germinate first? Foreign pollen grain will germinate first rather than the self-pollen. This adaptation is called as pollen prepotency. It is seen in Dolichos. Next, sensitive stigmas. Stigmas are very sensitive after cross-pollination and they close to prevent the self-pollination. This feature is called as sensitive stigmas. The example for this is Mimulus. These are all the adaptations for cross-pollination which we call as contrivances for cross-pollination. Why the plants struggle this much to occur self-cross-pollination? Let's see what are the advantages of the plant because of the cross-pollination. Cross-pollination brings about the genetic recombination resulting in origin of new species. New species occurs due to the genetic recombination. The offspring produced through cross-pollination are very healthy compared to the offspring produced through self-pollination and they have strong hybrid vigor. Numerous crop plants give very high yield because of cross-pollination. If they are self-pollinated, they won't give this much of yield. The yield also increases and the plants have high resistance to pests and disease if they are cross-pollinated. So, these are all the advantages of cross-pollination. That's why the plant prefers to undergo cross-pollination rather than self-pollination. In this lesson, we have studied about the self-pollination, cross-pollination, contrivances for self-pollination, cross-pollination, and their advantages also. Okay? If you have any doubts, you are free to ask me. I hope you have all understood my lesson. Thank you.